Thank you very much. Very kind and warm welcome. Wonderful breakfast. Lovely introduction. Nice and long there. I was clean shaven when I got here this morning. And of course, we're all going to play rugby league in heaven. Why do you think Jesus picked 12 disciples? Puts himself on there, loose forward, number 13. And interestingly, that just came to mind there, because what I want to talk to you a little bit about, and I've got to be careful because I'm fortunate to speak a fair bit to schools, businesses, do a little bit of punditry on telly, and it's all enjoyable. But I must admit, standing and talking about my faith is the most important and also the most terrifying, because it's the one that I don't want to get wrong. You know, there's no margin in my mind for error. But what I want to do is talk a little bit about my journey in rugby league, and it'll become apparent through, hopefully, my vocabulary and the way that I think that my faith is the underpinning foundation within that, and it's the lens through which I see the world. And a lot of the success that you described there for me wasn't because we were so much talented sportsmen, or that we were biggest, strongest, fastest, or we had this amazing skill acquisition. I played with some amazing players. But actually, it was down to the nature and ultimately, to use one word, the love that was at the centre of the generation of players that I played with. This altruistic, and by altruistic I mean this selfless concern for the well-being of others, this benevolent nature, the kindness in the camaraderie and the galvanising friendships that were forged, and then the courage to overcome some of the triumph and disaster, to quote Rudyard Kipling there, that we faced in our sporting journey. Inevitably, everybody does in life. But because we were willing to do that walk and walk together, we did believe that there was nothing we couldn't achieve or overcome if we was committed to doing that together. And I think it's a small image, a facsimile of a much larger eternal gospel truth that I look forward to and hope towards in terms of eternity. And if I walk out this building today and it's gone 10 out of 10, it's been because somebody who doesn't know who Jesus is right now, who's not a Christian yet, might be asking those questions. What does that mean in my life? Because I profess Jesus to be my Lord and Saviour, the first fruits of an eternal hope. And when I say eternal, something that I can trust in and look forward to lasting forever, not in medals and silverware, that whilst they're nice to win and achieve, ultimately diminish and fade away over time. In fact, I've got my 2004 grand final ring on. Can anybody remember who we beat in that grand final? Bradford, there you go. Get that down here. I feel like Jim Bowen. Do you know in Bullseye when he goes, here's what you could have won, mate. I'll show you a bit later on. But interestingly, even the inscription 2004 has started to fade away on that, because it won't last forever. Even gold, silver, the medals, they fade away. Only in Christ have I seen something that lasts forever. I'm currently the Director of Culture, Diversity and Inclusion. It's a long-winded title. The Leeds Rhinos, when I signed for Leeds in 1997 as a fanboy, we had one men's team. And in 2024, we've got a men's team, a women's team, a wheelchair team who won their grand final about 7-8 weeks ago. We've got a learning disability team. We've got a physical disability team, young men and women with disabilities, some of whom got blown up in Afghanistan, thought that life had come to a meaningful end, and found new purpose and belonging, playing rugby league in our disability team. We've got a netball team for young women who don't want to play a stupid game like rugby league, running into people. And we've also got a running club as well on a Wednesday night, which is fantastic, so inclusive and accessible. Both my wife and my mother-in-law compete in that. And for me, in my job role now, I wake up most mornings with a debt of gratitude for opportunities that I had to realise some of my potential. And I've got this driving passion and motivation to pay that forward to the next generation of people. Because I believe that's all we all need in life, is an opportunity. We're all made in God's image. In the beginning, God, the person around which the Bible centres, the most important protagonist in there, God created, he's a creator God, the heavens and the earth, brings order to chaos, brings night and day, the land and the heavens, the land and the sea. This dichotomy, contrast, bringing that, shedding light, let there be light. And that order to chaos in there is, for me, this structural creativity. And not long after this, he's made us in his image. He's made us male and female. And I believe we've all got a gift, a talent, and ability inside of us that we can contribute. We talk about body of Christ, the church. We've all got the same job, different roles to play in serving. But it's just having that chance to bring that to fruition, because love is bestowal. When you've got a gift to give, then you've got something to bestow upon others. So for those who don't know rugby league, who's not interested in the sport, that's fine. I've got a short clip, give you a bit of a synopsis, a snapshot of my journey in a Leeds Rhinos shirt.
I think I'm 1309, 1,309th player to have represented this great club, and I don't think there'll be many players within that time that's played with as many players as I have over the last 20 years as well. It's been wonderful, and with all the successes and some of the adversity as well, I think it's the people that you play with that you really treasure. That's where the real gratification, and being able to do it in front of my hometown fans in my home city of Leeds is been a dream come true, and been a real privilege. And 20 years in, nearly done, nearly finished, coming to the end of my career, it's been a wonderful experience.
Jamie Jones once more through Blake Green, brilliant try from Jamie Jones Buchanan. Oh, he's passed it inside, and it is Jamie Jones Buchanan. Burrow short ball to Jamie Jones. Jamie Jones Buchanan for Leeds. It's one of the most popular beards in rugby league. Joel Moon, back it comes to Hall, inside to Jamie Jones, and Jamie Jones Buchanan gets over for the try. Here is Jamie Jones, and he scores.
Been through as a player the golden generation, and I've seen all sides of it, the ups and the downs, and you've got to be there for all of it. As a Leeds supporter, I'll never leave them or forsake them, and when I do finish, I'll go back out and stand in that south stand.
Wow, it's amazing how good you can make yourself look in a 90-second video, isn't it? I played rugby league for 22 years, and that's every good clip I could find. I actually wasn't that good, I'll be honest with you. My superpower was being distinctly average for long periods of time, but boy did I play with an unbelievable cohort generation of very, very talented human beings. Some amazing players, loving, caring, with an outstanding culture, and you don't know you're out of it until you're out of it. It's great to catch up with some of those guys as well. I've got one of my old teammates here in Andy Kirk, who's also a Christian as well. Wonderful journey, and of all the success I had, actually the treasure is in the relationships that you forge. Really interesting, you heard my name there, Jones Buchanan. Got a silly story for you that'll give you a bit of an insight into where I've come from. My origin story, because that's really important to understand who I am and to give me a little bit of context. My name, obviously, Jamie Jones Buchanan. My full name's actually Jamie Daniel Peter Jones Buchanan. My mum wanted me to be called Daniel. Right? My dad wanted me to be called Peter after his best mate. My mum and dad were only 18 when they had me, so they were only young and they couldn't decide, so they compromised with Jamie, right? Don't know where Jamie come from. Daniel and Peter are great biblical names, but they give me Jamie. My mum's maiden name's Jones. My dad's surname is Buchanan, right? They also couldn't decide which one to have, so they called me Jones Buchanan, double barrel name. So I went to school and I got the same name as either my mum or my dad. Crazy. And it never caused me any problems until I made my debut for Leeds Rhinos, because I wanted to play for Leeds. My boy dream coming true. The late great Graham Murray picks me, so I'm going to use you this week. I'm like, how good's this? Running in there. It'd been a Friday night, and I'm looking round changing room for my shirt and thinking, right, where's Jones Buchanan? I can't wait for my family to see it, both sides. And I couldn't see a name, Jones Buchanan, on the back of any shirt. So I'm like, oh, wow, I've definitely been picked. There was one shirt where subs were sat, and it had Jones on. I thought, there's no more Joneses, it must be mine, but there's half my name missing. So I waited for the kit man, Roy Adams, right, who was in charge of putting names up back at kit, to come in. I said, Roy, is this my shirt? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, there's only half my name on it. He said, the rest of it won't fit. I said, are you having a laugh? I said, there's New Zealanders in this league with every letter in the alphabet on back of it. He said, it won't fit. So I'm 17, I'm not going to argue, a senior member of staff. Goes out, must have done all right. I just remember it being so tough, physical, quick. I don't remember much about it, but I enjoyed it. And I must have done all right, because the late, great Graham Murray picked me again about 3 weeks later, this time away at Salford. How good's this? Playing for Leeds a second time, and we're going away. We're going to get that experience. So gets on bus, gets to Salford at the Willows. Kirky played there for a bit, not the most glamorous ground, proper rugged ground. It was brilliant. I used to enjoy actually playing there. But I've gone down, and I'm looking for my shirt in do you remember at old changing rooms, you had to walk around on your hands and knees. And I couldn't find a shirt with Jones up back anywhere. What's going on here? What this kit man's done in his infinite wisdom, right, is put Jones on home shirt, Buchanan on away shirt. So you've got all casual Leeds fans going to the game going, who's this Buchanan? He's worse than this Jones who played last week. Got some rubbish here. And I always blamed him for the fact that I didn't have a song. So when you go to football rugby stadiums, you sing songs about your favourite players and teams. And fortunately, I didn't seem to have one. Because whenever I did something well, which wasn't very often, as you can tell by the way, I'd be walking back on side and you could just hear a fan going in the background like this. Doors banging, tumbleweed blowing. I thought, what's going on here? And then we signed Jamie Peacock from Bradford Bulls, 2006. Remember, he's another homegrown boy, and he scored a try, did something, and they all singing, erupted into song around him. I thought, what to say about profit in his hometown, but I try my best. I'll work hard. Anyways, 2007, technology changes a little bit. Numbers get a bit smaller, as do the letters. Gets my full name up black at shirt for the first time. And I scored a try. I'm walking back on side, and it happens. Jamie Jones. Jamie Jones. He's got no song. His name's too long. Jamie Jones. It transpires, honest truth. The reason I've not got a song is my name's been too long all along. Right, usually I give out a bit of an award here, present for first person who can spot me, all right? So I know you're not looking, we're all pretty competitive in there. But I've got a picture of me when I was a kid with some of my school friends, all right? And I just want you to be competitive with yourself, or person next to you, and see who can guess which one's me the quickest. You all ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Whoa, there we go. Go. Anybody guess which one's me, by the way? Right on this end. With orange ball. So there's a couple of clues as to who I am and where I'm from in this picture, right? Stand out like a sore thumb. I have thought about putting a big arrow above, just in case anybody's in any doubt. Back then I used to have a lovely head of hair. I'm a good 2 house bricks taller than the next kid. But what's interesting about this photo, and the reason why I like sharing it, is because I'm the youngest in this photo. Maybe, perhaps, this young kid who's maybe somebody's little brother. But these are all my classmates. And the reason why I was youngest is I was born on 1st of August, which some of you, I'm hoping, will know is Yorkshire Day, right? Proud Yorkshireman, how good is that? But what that means when you're born in June, July, August, you're youngest in school year. And what you tend to find is, especially when you're coaching, is the kids who are 4 or 5 year old and born at that end of the year are underdeveloped. They haven't had as much chance to grow as those born in October, November, December. And it's a real fact. If you 10, 15 years ago scoured professional sport, you'd find the vast majority of the players, men and women, would be born in the second half of the school year. And it's this limiting belief as a kid that you think, I'm not good at sports, or I'm not going to try hard, I'm just happy to get beat. And it's a limiting belief, a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak. But I was lucky, as you can tell. I was massive, all right? So it lent itself to me being really good at sport. Now, don't forget, academically, I'm still youngest in here, so things were challenging. But actually, I'm really big. Now, you might say that's genetics, you might say it's luck, you might call it providence. I was put in a place for time such as this to grow and develop a skill, a talent and ability over time with my classmates. And what it helped me to do was find a purpose, a meaning, identity on the vehicle of sport. And I knew from a young age that's what I was going to live my life on. And I could do it. And that's where I stood out. People wanted me on their team. And it's really nice to be part of a tribe, a community, a team, a church, and have that belonging. And over time, if you can develop that gift, then life is quite fulfilling. But that's sometimes where society falls down. We don't make it in such a way that people are encouraged to find what they're good at and then thrive. Our education system, everything. I'm going to finish with a little bit of this, which is where my passion and a lot of my work leans into right now. The second part, and I've got to mention this, I'm the only person of colour in this photograph, and it didn't even occur to me until about 18 months ago when I started this job. And the reason being on the inclusion board at RFL, I learned that only 4.5% of community game players are non-white, which is just crazy. So I grew up watching Ellery Hanley, Martin Fire, Jason Robinson, other figures renowned as being people of colour, but we've got a lot of work to do to make it more diverse as a sport. It's not diverse enough. I often call Edinley Stadium, AMT, a diverse, inclusive, fertile flowerbed of opportunity. And while for the most part it's true, it's not quite diverse enough. So, when you look at the stats, where I was born, when I was born, colour of my skin, the statistic said I should never have played professional sport when I reflect on it, but I did. And for me, maybe not quite a miracle, but I believe there's a providential part in that. Now, whenever anybody comes to AMT Stadium, I love obviously showing them some of our trophy cabinet. You read out some of the accolades, and it's wonderful in that we've been able to win a lot of trophies. I learned last Sunday that up until my generation of players, Leeds has only won championship 3 times since 1895. We won it 8 times in our time, and it was wonderful. And I think, again, it was this mosaic of talented individuals that came together at a moment in time that loved the club, grew up in the stands, were very selfless and giving in their nature. But whenever I talk about the medals, I mentioned 2004, went on this mad run in 2007, 8 and 9, first team ever won 3 in a row. But it's really important, especially the young people, to learn that we become the first team ever to lose 3 Challenge Cup finals in a row in 2010, 11 and 12. I only ever actually won the one and played a part in 1 Challenge Cup final. And there's this contrast, this dichotomy, right, in that triumph and disaster treat those 2 imposters just the same, because they're all just momentary pieces of feedback as to where you are right now. After the fact, it becomes almost irrelevant. You're working as hard as you can. But what's important is that we're always learning from the day before the prior wall of evidence, from playing in that, or competing in that egg and spoon race as a 4 or 5-year-old. They're all building blocks as to who and what we are. But if we can persevere and learn the lessons in sport and support each other, you tend to get better, and a rising tide lifts all the boats. And interestingly, when we did win our first Challenge Cup, 2014, and I don't want to go too much into it for time and for the purpose of making a point, when we did win it in 2014, we had about 8 games left of the season, and something really interesting happened in that we didn't win a single game for the rest of the year. Absolutely ruined us. And it was a big lesson for me, as I've sort of just mentioned, that whether you win or lose on a Friday night isn't as important as how you get out of bed on a Saturday morning and use either experience. And I love to tell young people that if you walk around like Conor McGregor after a win with your chest out, the person who's in second is going to come flying past you. It's always about learning, try to be a better, humble version of yourself. What I always try and encourage people to do is look past the gold and the silver, because in time that perishes. And again, it's even just an image still, but the treasure to me are the faces that are on the walls behind the trophies. And there's some of the teammates, the cohort generation that's known now as the golden generation, referred to as a time, as we know, as the golden decade. And right at the centre of that is this guy, Kevin Sinfield, who I refer to as the greatest leader and cultural architect sport's ever seen. And the reason being is he created an environment that demanded that everybody was allowed to thrive. And we saw the gifts of all the individuals come to fruition. It was always about the team. And if you did anything to disrupt that environment, then there was a Scarborough warning to start with, and then people found themselves outside of that environment. And sometimes when you talk about the golden generation, people think, oh, it must be the same 17 players for 15 years. And it wasn't. When I look at the board, there was about 144 different people come through that system at the time. But he demanded that everybody was allowed to thrive, because he knew that if we were going to win, we needed to create leaders. And good leaders create leaders. And there were times in his humility where he'd go, this is your time to lead, whether it be Danny Maguire, whether it be Ryan Hall, whether it be Jamie Peacock. And everybody took their turn at doing what they were good at for the good of the team. Very servile. But for me, the underlying essence of why we were successful is because some of the love that we displayed for each other, that selfless concern for the well-being of others. And the Bible's taught me that love is a verb. I think love's doing, through his life, death, and resurrection. Jesus comes to the earth. We all have this promise of eternal life for those who believe in him. And what he had to do for that to happen is immense. It eclipses everything I've ever seen in sport. But there was this nature in which this picture here became the most important picture of my sporting career, because it underpinned the reason why I was so successful. And what's gone on here is about 3-4 weeks before this picture, I'd played in a semi-final, and up to this point I'd played in 19 finals with Leeds Rhinos. But I was taking a carry down the short side at Warrington against St Helens, and a player called Travis Burns comes and tackles me there, It's a fair tackle. But the force and the spin, the torsion, ended up resulting in me tearing my quad off my kneecap. So I get up to play ball, and I'm looking down at my knee and thinking, that's sore. And my kneecap's there, and my quad's recoiled up here. So I've got up, played ball, gone down, and I'm holding it going, oh. And for the first time in my career, I got stretched off. To make it even worse, they've put gas and air on me for pain, right? I'm just laid there. I thought I must have been hallucinating here, because my grandma, I'm 34 years old, by the way, my grandma's come out of the crowd onto the fit pitch. She's helping them carry me off. I'm like, what are you doing? Get off. Got some explaining to do here. Friday night, this, BBC, fish and chip night in Bramley. Everybody's watching it. Are you mad? But Kev rings me up and says, Jonesy, if we get to the final, I want you to come and lift trophy with me. And I thought, mate, typical sentiment. What a guy. You know, he could have been thinking about getting the next win, accolade to his name. But he's thinking about his mates not leaving or forsaking him. And sure enough, they won in record fashion, 50-0. Tommy Briscoe scores 5 tries, and at the end of the game, he comes up, says, come on, Jonesy, we're going to go up. I'm stood there in my suit, just being a fan again. How good's this? On the bench, watching it, eyes open to widest aperture. Come on, we're off up. I went, no, mate, you mad? I'm not John Terry going up there in my suit. You mad? But then Danny Maguire, Rob Burrow, Kylie Luai, come on. And the sentiment was that even though I couldn't play, I was no less a part of that team. They like that, they like that. And that, for me, was the reason behind the success. And then even this picture was massively eclipsed, because in December of 2019, we got the horrific news that Rob had been diagnosed with motor neuron disease. And at the time, I was just walking into the building where BBC Sports Personality of the Year was in that year. And Doddy Weir won a lifetime, a special Ellen, I forget her name, Ellen Rawlinson, that's it, sorry, award. And I thought first time I started to see what M&D was, and you know, this horrendous news that Rob had been diagnosed. The month after, I was due to celebrate my 20th year, testimonial year, and we quickly changed that into the first fundraiser, and it was an unbelievable event. We played against Bradford Bulls, wonderful turnout from their fans, our fans. Game come together to start to raise money and awareness. We've got a great game tomorrow, 7-4-5 game. So you've got Doddy Weir, Ed Slater, Rob Burrow, and all their friends recognised in this hybrid game that we're going to play at Edinley. Kevin Sinfield, Johnny Wilkinson coming to kick goals, and a plethora of superstars coming to play this special game to keep that ball rolling. But Kevin Sinfield again decided as a captain that it was on him to go start raising money and awareness, and he had this idea to go raise £77,700 for his mate so that he could help with his family, still got mortgages to pay. And I think just the sentiment that got played out publicly on BBC Breakfast every morning just changed the hearts and minds of a nation. It transcended the nation. And the support they got led ultimately to him, I think, up to press raising about 16 million quid and having another 50 pledged from the government. And more importantly, just creating more awareness of those living with MND so that they can also live it publicly, and we can all lean into supporting those who need it the most, those who are living with it, those who are caring for it, those who are studying, trying to find treatments and hopefully, God willing, cures. Kev believed that full stop on the end of the sentence that says there is no cure should be flicked off, and I believe Doddy Weir did as well. And this image here is of Kev at Edinley Stadium picking Rob up out of his chair and carrying him over the finish line. And that marathon had 12,000 people competing, half of which had never competed in a marathon before. And that's because that story, that narrative, that love that was personified by those guys, and I'm just looking at your email address, agape, you know, that sacrificial love at the centre of it, just shone. And for me, that eclipses every photograph. It's the most important picture of my generation, and there's not a rugby ball in sight. And that for me is the reason why I was so successful. But whilst Kev and Rob and all of us are doing our very best to fight against MND, you know, even that in itself is finite. And I started to learn back in 2004 at the start of this journey about a guy who come into the world some 2,000 years ago to fight death and won as well. Now the guy on your right, my left here, is Ali Lauatiti, big New Zealander, come over in 2004, back rower, same position as me. I thought, wow, we've just signed one of the best players in the world. I'm still trying to cement my permanent position in team. That's it, I've had it. But he pointed me to church and ultimately to Christ. And little did I know, rather than lose my life as a player, he saved my life as a human being. And he was unbelievable as a player. I mean, you can just see him carry the ball now. He's got the biggest hands you've ever seen. He carried the ball around like it was a peanut. And it was like he was playing basketball, right? And he was massive as well. He was huge. Nobody could tackle him. But such a soft-hearted, gentle giant. And he'd play in such a ferocious way on the field, but when he'd come off it and he's in changing rooms, being around a load of cantankerous young men aiming for next accolade and sticking the chest out, there was just those moments where he'd separate himself, didn't want to be a part of some of that. I mean, it was because he was a Christian, it was part of his faith. That wasn't the identity that he wanted to replicate. He wanted to live in the image of Christ. And it was great for me as a sportsman and a friend and a colleague of his to ask him that question, you know, who is Jesus? What does it mean to you? And took me along to City Evangelical Church in Beeston, and I went there in about 2005, and it wasn't an instant thing, it was overnight. It wasn't overnight, it was over a period of time doing Christianity Explored courses, being taken under the wing of the pastor at the time there, a guy called Mike Wildsmith, unbelievable fella, a mentor, a friend of mine still to this day. You won't believe, and I won't go into the story, but he went away to Warrington and Liverpool at Bridge Chapel with a guy who's a chaplain at Liverpool SC called Bill Bygroves, and he's since come back to Warrington. And then I asked him about 2.5 years ago if he wanted to be chaplain of Leeds Rhinos, and he's since come back, does those connect groups with our players, prays with them. It's wonderful. We've got a Carols event as well on 17th of December. I'd love to invite you all. I'll give you some leaflets before. It's a great way to come and share your faith in the sporting stadium, and he's great at that as well. And I started to understand who Jesus was. And even though all my life from being a young kid, my grandparents took me to church for formal events, weddings, christenings, I didn't know who Jesus was, certainly not theologically. But the scales fell off my eyes on that road to Damascus. Started to see the truth of life, what it is. And I could see it in an image, in a facsimile, in my journey in sport, in the way that we looked after each other. And some of the messages in there. Got married in 2008. Kev was one of my best men. The other kid here on your left, with blonde hair, is my best mate at school, called Danny Ehrman. He was a 4 and 800 metre runner. And when I got married, the Bible starts and ends with a marriage. I got in Christ Jesus written in Aramaic on my wedding ring. And that's interestingly been inscribed. And it hasn't rubbed off. And that's a prayer that Christ, that Jesus is at the centre of my wedding. It's the most precious institution. It's the most precious thing in my life. My wife is my best mate. We've got 4 wonderful kids. And it's interesting, and it's not a judgmental thing actually, it's just a reflection. My dad, my Buchanan dad, my biological dad, left when I was about 18 months, 2 years, so that paternal influence wasn't really there. And knowing God, knowing Christ has helped me to, I'd like to hope, be a dad to my boys. Real interesting, I've got 4 boys, obviously all my wife Emma. My dad, when he left, he went on and had 10 more kids to 5 different women, like Genghis Khan. And his youngest 2 daughters are younger than my 4 boys. So when they come to our house, I have to say to my boys, will you go in there and look after your aunties, please? It's a bit confusing. She's a bit like, because you're only in Bramley. This is us at Edinley MT. This was last year's Carol's event. Very informal, Christmas jumpers. We want to bring a community together and get excited about the run up to Christmas and some of that family that brings. And whether you're a Christian or not, people seem to be willing to accept and hear gospel messages at that time. And Mike's unbelievable at the way that he delivers them. We encourage and invite some of our players. You can see Cam Smith doing a bit of a reading there. And in 2024, this is the makeup of the Leeds Rhinos. And in my role as hard as it is, I'll be honest with you, because you could spend a year in each department just doing the work that needs doing. But it is such an honour and a privilege to be part of a club that serves a community in such a way, helping people to change their lives through the power of sport. That's our mission and vision. I think Kev and Rob have certainly set somewhat of a standard and an ethos in that from a secular point of view. And again, people ask me all the time, what opportunities do I get now in my faith? And a bit like Ali, who never preached verbally, he was a shining light in that you could tell there's something different, divine, within his thinking in the way that he lived. And just as well as a member of Leeds Society, and I'll just finish off here with what's on my heart right now, I get to work with a multitude of different sectors, whether it be charity sector, third sector, businesses, education, criminal justice system. And they're all surviving in a time right now of austerity where funding's being pulled and cut, and we're starting to understand that we really need to collaborate as much as we can, share resources, share wisdom, lived experience, if we're going to have that social impact within some of our communities. And what I find, though, the challenge is that everybody speaks a slightly different language. If I use the word risk with a skull, it means something very different if I use the word risk in a financial consultancy service. And that's very different if I use the word risk when I'm working with West Yorkshire Police or some ex-military people. That's just one word. You pile them together in a few sentences and then paragraphs, and what you find is people on completely different pages. I won't get into it now, but everybody's got a slightly different speed of working. Businesses will get done in one day. And apologies if you work in public sector, it's not a criticism, you're probably 10 times safer than the business, by the way. There's chaos. But businesses get things done in a day, that education gets done in 3 weeks, that the public sector gets done in about 6 weeks. And that isn't in of itself a bad thing. They've all got different diligences and processes, some of them age old to go through, but what it tends to mean is that they're incongruent and they get frustrated with each other and not a lot gets done. They work at different paces, and they've all got slightly different nuanced ideas as to what and how they get the objectives done. And it almost seems like we're moving now into a world where strategy isn't a forensic, detailed plan. It's a moral compass that points in a direction with a set of values. And I was just talking, I think Andy upstairs and a few individuals about this phrase or this picture that was illustrated when I was listening to a pastor speak recently. And he said the average aeroplane has about 4 or 5 million constituent parts to it, and not one of them can fly. You put them all together, and there's no end to where you can go. And we're living in a world, certainly in my community in Leeds, where we need to collaborate, share resources, understanding, finance, to enable us to change lives from a community level. And whether it be working with the homeless, whether it be working with university students who are coming out of university, helping them to realise their potential, because that's up the stream. We try to support them as to what might happen down the stream. And it reminds me, without going into it, and I read the Bible every day, which probably isn't surprising to you, but even when I read it in such a way that I get through the whole Bible in a year, sometimes it's a meditative reading first thing on a morning when you're still in this state between sleeping and waking, and it sits there in your subconscious. And my prayer is that no matter what I think, do, or say, is somewhat biblically led through what I consume, that daily bread. And Acts 1, 2 and 3 this morning, he's talking about Pentecost. Ironically, it's almost like we need this universal language, and we need to talk to each other and communicate in a world that's not got churches anymore. We're all living in multiple tribes, which can mean that we're in danger of being pulled into multiple values, ways of thinking, ways of behaving. And for me, as I'd encourage you guys to be, and I'm sure most of you are, it's always got to be God-centered if we want the best for humanity. It's always got to have Jesus at the centre of it, because otherwise, a bit like Ecclesiastes, it's meaningless. It's all meaningless. So, to finish off, thank you for your time. I've gone on a bit there, but I've got a short video again, and this is the Leeds Rhinos Foundation, where we aim to change lives through sport. Now, I've spoke to you today as a born-again Christian, Obviously, I'm me, and I exist in a multicultural environment at Edinburgh, and it's a great place to be. When you're director of culture, diversity and inclusion, you're welcoming people in from all backgrounds, faiths, beliefs, and trying to give them that love. I don't force anything down anybody's throat, but I always try and live in a way, I pray that's godly. But regardless, the ethos and the culture at the Rhinos is one that helps people to thrive no matter what barriers might be there in their life. And I think just to finish, this video is a quick 3-minute illustration of what that looks like.
What is community? At its simplest, it's just people who live near each other. Like us, in our city, Leeds. With its rich heritage, lively spirit, and world-class rugby league team. But at its core, community is far more important than that. It's a group with something in common. It's a feeling fostered among people who care for each other and sharing values of culture. We're all different, proudly diverse, but connected. Leeds Rhinos Foundation, one team. Welcome to our community. It's one of opportunity, of belonging, of confidence, personal growth, and sport, of course. We're a charity who lives and breathes sport. It's what's at our centre, our core, our beating heart. But what do we mean by sport? It might not be what you first think. We're not about winners and losers. We're not about dogged competitiveness. We certainly don't believe sport is the game for the gifted few. No, to us, sport is the key to unlocking potential. All of our potential. The potential that resides in every person. To be their best selves, to live meaningful lives of purpose, and feel deeply connected and supported. As a charity, our driving force is to help more people realise and relish discovering their potential, especially our most needy, vulnerable, and often overlooked. The Leeds Rhinos Foundation is a charity born out of rugby league. A sport, yes, but so much more than that. A community, a family infused with team spirit and energy. A sport that reflects life, the resilience we need, the fleeting joy we feel, the people we surround ourselves with, our community, our tribe, our team. Rugby league is a sport that can teach us something crucial about life and how to live well. So, we decided to use our sport and everything connected with it to help people. To help our people. The people of Leeds and the surrounding area. Our families, our young people, and our children. It's this spirit of belonging that we as a charity strive to foster.
That's the power of sport. It's our passion. The Leeds Rhinos Foundation, changing lives through the power of sport. Changing lives through the power of sport. What's your God-given gift? Have you had a chance to develop it, to thrive it, so that you can use it to bestow within your community, your tribe, your church, your team? This has been my environment. This is where I've been able to thrive. There's a great deal of gratitude for that. It's been wonderful to share with you. I know most of you, there's a lot of you are Bradford fans, all right? It's not a bad thing at all. I would love Bradford Bulls to be back in Super League because the sport needs rivalries, right? They're the best stories. But I'd invite you all as well, if you ever want to come to Edinburgh and see a little bit more of what we do, please come. You can come in your Bradford kit if you want. We won't kick you out. We've got, I'm going to leave some leaflets at the back. We've got our Carols event, as I mentioned, now 17th of December. It'll be wonderful to welcome you all there and have a bit more of a chat. But in the meantime, just about finished, so I'll thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. Have a great weekend.